So, good evening, everybody. Today we will be discussing percutaneous transvenous mitral commissurotomy, that is BMV. Uh, so, indications of BMV are as follows: symptomatic severe mitral stenosis, that according to the recent definition is now mitral valve area less than 1.5 centimeter square with favorable valve morphology. The second indication is asymptomatic severe AVs who have pulmonary hypertension, that is pulmonary arterial systolic pressure more than 50 mm of mercury at rest or 60 mm of mercury, or if it is a severe MS with the severe MS according to old guidelines with a MVA less than 1 centimeter square. The third indication is moderate mitral stenosis in pregnancy. And the fourth indication is symptomatic patients who are either not candidate for surgery or high risk for surgery. The contraindications for PTMC are to be discussed in detail. What European Society of Cardiology and also American College of Cardiology say are, that is MVA is more than 1.5 centimeters square, if there is left atrial thrombus, if there is more than mild mitral regurgitation, if there is severe or bicommissural calcification, if there is absence of commissural fusion, if there is concomitant aortic valve disease, severe combined tricuspid stenosis, or regurgitation requiring surgery, or if there is concomitant CAD requiring bypass surgery. However, what we have found is that because with Indian data, there are certain expanding indications also which are asked in exam with the question, what are the expanding indications of PTMC? So they are mitral restenosis, mitral stenosis with left atrial appendage clot, with Manjunath class of clot being 1A, 1B or 2A. I'll be discussing them later. With moderate central jets of mitral regurgitation, with moderate MS but symptomatic for mitral stenosis. Patients whom we want to do hybrid therapy in setting of associated AR, AS and CAD. This point needs certain explanation. Now we have seen in almost all Euroscore series as well as STS score series that mortality of double valve replacement and complications of double valve replacement both peroperative as well as long term are more than single valve replacement. So what we have is suggested according to Indian data is that we can cut short the procedure of mitral valve with the PTMC and can do just a single valve surgery in patients of rheumatic etiology valvular heart disease. And even Luton-Basher syndrome is now one of the expanding indications. Coming to Manjunath classification of LA appendage clot. So type 1A LA means that LA appendage clot is confined to appendage. 1B is that LA appendage clot protruding into LA cavity. Type 2A is LA root clot, but it is above the plane of fossa ovalis. Type 2B is LA root clot, but it extends below the plane of fossa ovalis. Type 3 is a layered clot over the intra-atrial septum itself. Type 4 is a mobile clot which is attached to LA free wall, and type 5 is ball valve thrombus. So what is now said is that PTMC can easily be done in type 1A, type 1B and type 2A. There are certain techniques which I'll be discussing later of entering into left ventricle after crossing the intra-atrial septum, which can be used in these patients who have type 2A kind of clot. This is one more paper by Dr. Manjunath only, where they have found that incidence of LA thrombus even in sinus rhythm and mitral stenosis as much as 6.6%. Therefore, if we see, even if we are looking at a mitral stenosis in sinus rhythm, we have to be very, very careful about evaluating for LA thrombus. So, cutting down all contraindications which are existing according to foreign guidelines. Now, relevant contraindication in today's date for PTMC are if there is a persistent LA body clot or a clot over IAS or a valvular thrombus, if there is more than moderate MR, or if there is a densely calcified wall or a bicommissural calcification. Among all these, if someone asks which is the most important contraindication, despite everything fine, is bilateral commissural calcification. Because the principle behind this particular procedure is that we are doing a commissurotomy. I'll be discussing it later. Coming to how to evaluate a patient for whether the valve morphology is favorable or not for PTMC. So the Wilkins score was the first score, which was given in 1980s, which looked at four things. One is mobility of the valve. Second is thickening of the valve leaflet. Third is calcification of the valve leaflet. And fourth is subvalvular thickening. So all these are grades on the grade for 1 to 4. And this particular score is added up. It's also known as Boston score and a Pascal score. This is a transthoracic echocardiography score. This is also asked in exam whether it is a TE score or TT score. So the original paper was done on transthoracic echo only. However, it can also be used in TE as well. The sensitivity and specificity of this particular score is 50% and 50%. Whenever we are getting any score above 11, we say that it's unfavorable for a successful outcome. Whenever we are getting score less than 8, that means clinically there is a young patient with a loud OS and a pliable loud S1, then it is most likely a favorable thing. And between 9 to 11, there is gray zone. The limitations of these scores are also asked, which is that echocardiography is limited in ability to differentiate nodular fibrosis from calcification. Assessment of commissural involvement is not included or underestimated in this score, which we have already discussed is the most important thing which we have to see. It doesn't account for uneven distribution of pathologic abnormalities. It doesn't account for relative contribution of each variable. And there is frequent underestimation of subvalvular disease on transthoracic echo. And it doesn't use results from TE or 3D echocardiogram. Putting
Are
these
you aware of any other scores which score? Yeah,
yes,
you
sir.
are coming.
Yeah. So there are multiple other scores which have been told to be used for pre-BMV assessment. The commissural calcium score, the Cormier score, the real-time 3D echo score. There's a Chen et al. Score. There's a Reed score. There's a Nobuyoshi score. So there are too many scores. However, one of these scores is also being recommended by European Society of Cardiology, and I'll be telling that. That is Cormier score. So it divides patients into 3 echocardiographic groups. Group 1 has a pliable non-calcified AML and mild subvalvular disease, that is thin cardi more than 10 mm long. This is a favorable morphology for BMP. Group 2 is pliable non-calcified AML but a severe subvalvular disease with the thickened chordae less than 10 millimeter long. This is intermediate and can be done by somebody who is an expert. And group 3 is calcification of mitral valve of any extent as assessed by fluoroscopy, whatever the state of subvalvular apparatus is. This is also an unfavorable valve morphology. Then apart from this, there is one more score which is recommended by European Society of Cardiology. I have hidden that particular slide. Because I actually did not understand it. What they did was they were doing they did a annulus index. They calculated transverse and horizontal and added them to these particular parameters only. That was the only score which I found in this guideline. I have not found it in any other textbook so far. So the principle of procedure, as we were discussing earlier, so what we do here is that this is the posterior medial commissure, this is the anterior. We can see here that anterior commissure is free and PMC is fused. So we go ahead and we dilate the balloon and we can see that now both the commissures are free. If both the commissures are calcified and if we go ahead and dilate, there are high chances that we are going to rupture the leaflet itself and it is going to cause MR. Now coming to success of the procedure. So what are the determinants of success of the procedure? As we have discussed, clinical profile of the patient, echocardiography, then transeptal catheterization, the expertise of the one who's performing the procedure, the balloon preparation, the crossing of mitral valve, and safe and effective balloon dilatation and avoiding any complication, especially MR and tamponade. So now coming to technique. So there are papers with both femoral vein as well as IJV. However, the recommended approach is right femoral.
So as you have seen, the most important indication, always whenever we discuss what to operate, everybody talks of Wilkins score. And Wilkins score is actually just a guide. We don't go by Wilkins score. The most important thing is how much of the calcification and how much stiff the anterior leaflet is there, what is the commissure and what is the subvalvular apparatus. Because ultimately the balloon has to cross the mitral valve and expand the balloon. As we expand the balloon, we want both the commissure to split. If there is a calcification in the anterior mitral leaflet, what happens? The split goes anterior along the calcification and can split the leaflet. So it does not matter about, I mean, Wilkins score is just a rough guide. It is important that the commissure, how good the commissures are and how is the anterior leaflet. And what happens when you expand first you expand the distal balloon, then you expand the proximal balloon. When you expand the distal balloon, if the chordae are very small, they're very closely opposed, or if there is a calcification somewhere, it can actually tear. So each time you have been if somebody is telling about Wilkins score, most of the operators, including me, I never go by Wilkins score. No, whenever we have a valve, we need to see when my valve inflates, what are the structures it is expanding. If there is some chordae which is likely to expand and damage it, then also one has to be careful. How we do it? When we cross the balloon, if I know there is particular set of chordae which is stenosed or small, we don't go till the apex. We keep it very proximal. So that is, the Wilkins score is not actually a rule. About the indication, can you, Mohit, what are the indications to do it in an asymptomatic patient? Suppose it's asymptomatic. I'm just trying to reinforce what you already said. But what are the symptomatic is clear. What are the indication to do it in an asymptomatic patient? Can you again elaborate?
Sir, if patient is having PH.
PH means PA pressures are 30,
more than 50 on rest and more than 60 on exercise.
Okay, and what else?
Or if moderate MS patient is pregnant, then we are because second trimester is the best time.
Okay. What else? Yeah. So I'm talking of controversial indication which has not been highlighted. New onset atrial fibrillation. Are you aware? Is it indication?
Yes, sir, it is indication.
Yes, sir.
Yes, new onset atrial fibrillation was missing in your, suppose you are following up the patient and there is a new, what happens? The compliance of the, are you going to talk about hemodynamics? No. Hemodynamics you're not talking.
No, we are not.
Whenever there is mitral stenosis, there is a very typically change in compliance of the left atrium. Because the valve is thickened, the atria tends to dilate, but not all atria tend to dilate. At times the septum is very thick and it dilates slightly posteriorly, and the pressure at times is taken by the venous. So there is a very characteristic change which comes in many of the mitral stenosis, that normally what do you expect? A wave to be prominent, but what happens? Even the V waves becomes prominent. That means atrial compliance tends to behave like a MR. I mean, it is so compliant, and sometimes it is so stiff. When it is stiff, it will not give a V wave. When it is compliant, it will tend to give a prominent V wave like picture. So this is, read about hemodynamics of mitral stenosis. It does not give you a typical waveforms. We'll come to when you do when you go transeptally. So what happens? The first manifestation may not be a significant atrial dilatation, but maybe an onset of atrial fibrillation because of the inherent stretch and transmission. So a new onset atrial fibrillation is also one of the indication. If you are following up the patient has gone into AF, it is an indication to see. The other indication, the extended indication, there was one slide. If you go to that indication, can you go to the slide about extended indications?
Yes, sir.
So when you talk about expanded indication, mitral restenosis, yes. MS with LA clot is not, we can always discuss, is it an indication? Yeah, it's a relative contraindication to put it on a clot, but left atrial clot, we can do it. Only if there is an indication for mitral stenosis to do it. No? If there is no indication, why should you do it? You put it in expanded. So you mean to say left atrial clot in itself is an indication for tackling mitral stenosis? Does it mean? I'm not sure. I'm asking.
No, sir. It is severe MS with a LA clot of this particular degree. 1A, 1B. Earlier, they used to say whenever
MS will be a contraindication. No, MS will be an indication. Sorry.
Yeah, certainly. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? Are you talking about Lutembecker? Whenever we have Lutembecker with ASD, is it good for doing a BNB, or it is a worse subset for doing a BNB?
Sir, it is usually it is decompressing LA, so LA is not that large. So we might find difficulty in maneuvering our hardware into left atrium.
Yeah, in a way you're right, but that is not the only problem.
Then RA pressures are also raised.
That is also not a issue. I mean, you can easily cross. The main problem is when we are doing a BMV, the balloon is taking the support of the septum actually. It is moving. It is
Yeah, that is
partly
also
it is getting support. There is no support in large ASDs. There is no support. So what happens? I think we have done 2 Lutembeckers. No, I've done it here. I don't know. Yes, we have done 2 Lutembeckers. So in last 3 years. So what happens when has to be? It will take more time than the usual. The balloon keeps on. It is so much of a space. In fact, it is not small. It is so huge. It's like a very large LA. So this it will keep on moving because it does not get the support of the septum. So you have to keep the device. I mean the whole everything very low and then take the support of the floor and then go. So it is actually more problematic doing in this. What are the changes of the septum with this? You're going to talk about the septum orientation, no? When you do the procedure.
yeah.
We'll talk about this during septum. Yeah, we'll continue.
So coming to approach, so we use femoral vein commonly, and techniques are in-out technique, double balloon technique,
Sorry. Again, contraindication slide you have not shown, no?
Contraindication slide I've
Except for LA clot.
Now more than moderate MR, and if there is a densely calcified bilateral commissural calcification.
What is your statement on concomitant coronary artery disease?
Yes, sir. Concomitant coronary artery disease is also, if the patient is more than 40 years of age, we'll look for it, and we'll have to then
be
go ahead.
listed, but that is not an absolute contraindication. It can PCI can only be done, and it can only be always
Sir,
be.
Sir, actually, this is what the European says, that concomitant CAD requiring bypass surgery is a contraindication, not the one which does not require bypass surgery. But in a few months, I have seen somebody arguing also in one of the clinical seminars where he said that even if you need bypass, you can go ahead with PTMC because the combined mortality of MVR plus bypass is much more than just CABG. So you should attempt in those patients also BMV, and if there is MR or if you require, then you can always do. The only precaution which you can do is that you should always do a coronary angiogram to know the anatomy in all patients above 40 years, and then go ahead with BMV. I have not seen it written anywhere, but this is what I have heard.
That is true for any procedure you do, no? Beyond 40 years, one should always do a coronary.
Yeah. So I'll be only discussing the Inouye technique. The Inouye technique was introduced.
So before that, what are the techniques? You should at least enumerate the techniques.
Yes, sir. One is Inouye technique, one is double balloon technique, one is metallic commissurotomy, and one is multi-track technique. So BMV was introduced in.
It can be femoral and it can be retrograde.
Yes, sir. It was introduced.
We'll be talking of
retrograde. Venous, no? Yeah, transvenous approach only.
Transvenous, not retrograde.
Yes. So BMV was introduced in 1984 by Japanese surgeon Kanji Inoue, who developed the procedure as logical extension of surgical closed commissurotomy. Till 1980s, CMV was a very popular and very simple and very cheap procedure for mitral valve stenosis. The Inouye technique is manufactured of PVC with a balloon attached at the distal end. The balloon is 2 latex layers, which is polyester micromesh.
BMV technique was introduced by Kanji Inoue, sir.
Yeah.
It was given by Brownwell Morrow and.
That is transseptal puncture.
Yeah, that is transseptal puncture.
Okay. So, owing to variable elasticity along its length, the balloon inflates in 3 distinct stages. We'll be discussing it later. The balloon section stiffened and slandered when stretched by insertion of a metal tube. The balloon size is pressure dependent and consists of 3 portions with slightly different compliance. This particular technique is faster and less cumbersome and generally requires less fluoroscopy time. It allows simple progressive upsizing of balloon without withdrawing the balloon from LA, which is an important advantage if larger balloon size are needed. And this system may, however, result in slightly higher incidence of MR. So presently, there are 4 types of balloons available in India. One is Inoue balloon, which is manufactured in Japan, the original Inoue balloon. One, the most commonly used and cheaper one is Acura, which is made in Bangalore. The third one is Synergy, which is made in Delhi. And there is one SYM PBMV balloon, that is Chinese balloon. So here you can see in this particular photograph, the upper one is
most common used balloon is actually SIM in this country, and Synergy is not made by Advanced Life Sciences. It is actually repackaged by Synergy. It is still Chinese.
Sure.
So it is actually Advanced Life Sciences. Nobody. He is the person who is taking. Okla. Gaurav knows him. No, he comes to our वो जो दोनों लड़के आते हैं शशांक और वो.
Yeah, दो brothers.
So they keep so they actually are repackaging it here. So most common actually continues to be SIM.
Yeah. So in exam we will we can be asked differences between Inoue balloon and Acura balloon.
Yeah. That is important.
So I'll be discussing these differences in the next slide. We can just see here that in the Inoue balloon, which is the above one, there are 3 ports. There is one extra vent port, which is not present in Acura balloon. Then in Inoue balloon, this vent, it helps in de-airing the balloon prior to use and serves as also a safety mechanism in event of deflation failure. There is no vent in Acura. The shaft of balloon, Inoue balloon is 12 French, whereas shaft of Acura balloon is 11 French. The length is in both the cases 80 centimeter. Now in Inoue balloon, there are 2 small holes in balloon that allow slow seepage of contrast in case of deflation failure. And however, in Acura, there are no balloons, no holes on the outer surface of balloon. Inoue gives us more range of low pressure dilatation, whereas Acura gives us more stability at higher balloon pressure ranges. The range of dilatation also differs. In Inoue, range of dilatation is 4 mm. And in Acura, the range of dilatation is 3 mm. And Inoue gives a better support when compared to Acura. So these are not given anywhere. I've just found it from variable sources and made it. Are there any extra difference as well?
Most important is about the vent. Because normally when you flush it, it comes out through the other vent. So that when you flush the Acura, what you have to do is you have to slightly elevate the proximal end and then tap the air to take this out. So that is the most important reason. The rest of the reasons, it's nicely compiled, I would say. But the vent is important.
Coming to balloon accessories. So in balloon, what accessories we usually use? One is the stretching metal tube, which is a silver tube, which you have to remember. Then next is a polythene dilator. Then one is stainless steel guide wire, which has with a coiled floppy tip, 025. Then a 038 J-stipped spring wire stellate. Then there is one 30 ml plastic syringe with connected tube. This plastic syringe has 3 different levels. And then we need a caliper for measuring balloon size. For septal puncture accessories, we need a Broken-Brow needle, which is again a stainless steel needle. Then we need a Mullins sheath, which is a 7F or 8 French dilator sheath. Then an outer sheath, which is optional. And most importantly, a 032 Terimo wire, which should be preferably J-tipped, and a pigtail catheter. So this is the assembly we can see. So this is
Brokenbach needle is typically available in 2 types.
So I'll be telling. So this is the Acura balloon we have. We can see that balloon has basically, there are 2 lumens. The inner one, we have to remember this color, the golden color. This is basically the inner lumen. Then number 2, this is balloon stretching stellate. This is silver. This might not be looking silver, but we have to remember for exam. This is silver, this is gold. Then this is the coiled wire, jalebi wire. Then this is the J-shaped stellate. Then there is a septal dilator. Here we can see. Then this is a 30 ml syringe with 3 particular markings. according to how much contrast filled saline we want to inject. Then there is a broken brow needle, and there is a Mullin sheath. So the patient preparation is we have to keep fasting overnight or for 8 hours, and we have to stop oral anticoagulation 3 days before. The recommended or desired INR on the day of procedure should be less than 1.5. However, I have found few literature where they said that there is no need to stop it. For other medications like rate controlling agents are to be continued, diuretics are to be continued. For A with FVR, they may need IV beta blocker or calcium channel blocker to control ventricular rate on the table. Antibiotic prophylaxis usually are not required if we're using a new balloon. However, if mostly because we reuse these balloons in Indian setup, so antibiotic prophylaxis is recommended. One single shot of gram-positive covering antibiotic. Then local anesthesia and sedation. GA is only given if patient is a kid or is very sick or uncooperative. Now the next step is the balloon preparation, which is asked in exam. Very important step. So we have to first dilute the contrast. The contrast dilution is 1:4 when we are preparing an Innova balloon. For Acura balloon, it is 1:9 because there can be spill or deflation failure in Acura balloon. So we don't want to keep a very concentrated contrast. The central lumen and side vent should be flushed to de-air the
Most
balloon.
important is when you prepare the lumen, when you dye, you always fill the dye and check it under the fluoroscopy, because you want a minimal minimal dye which is seen on the thiz. Why? Because you want it to be as less thick as possible, because of you want to have a rapid deflation inflation. No, so
Right.
it should be as thin as possible and easily visible. So if whatever I mean, practically I prepare it 1:5 for everything, but
Okay.
you always check it, and if you feel that it is still very dark, you can always dilute it and
And the
recheck
balloon
it.
has to be kept in a lower position while you are checking it. So coming to balloon reference size formula, so it is calculated most commonly by using the Hung's formula, which we know that height in centimeter rounded to the nearest 0 divided by 10 plus 10. For example, if height is 147 centimeter, then we'll round it off to 150 divided by 10 and add 10, which gives us 25 mm. Some say that we can also select on basis of patient's height plus valvular status. So for a pliable valve, the reference size matched valve is used. We undersize it if patient has got subvalvular apparatus involvement by one size.
So what happens whenever you are using this balloon, no, Innova balloon?
Yes, sir.
I mean, like balloon or Innova balloon, it has got a typical pressure curve. So as the balloon is inflated, the maximum pressure is inserted when there is last couple of milliliters you push in. No, so there is a
Right.
maximum inflation pressure. Why I'm telling you, if and uh, there are sizes, say sizes are 24, 26, 28, 30. That means it will go maximum of 30.
Yes.
So अब suppose आपका 160 centimeter का patient है and you have taken a height a balloon, you wanted 160 means you have to take 26, right? By this chart 160 by 10 plus 10.
Yes, sir.
So that means around 26. So
Yes,
26 का मतलब ये है कि if the valve is pliable
Yes, sir.
and you are taking 26, then you inflate 2 less and then
Yes, sir.
increase by 0.5 and go to maximum. But
We'll
if
be
you
discussing
don't have
it.
if you have a don't have a 26 balloon, if you are taking 28 balloon or 30 balloon, इसका maximum pressure आता है जब ये last ml inflate करता है.
Yes, sir.
तो जो 26 maximum में inflate के pressure बनाएगा और जो 28 का जब आप 26 में inflate करोगे जो pressure बनाएगा वो different होगा. Okay, 26 will exert lot of pressure, but 28 inflated to 26 is not going to exert the same pressure as 26. So that is the main difference. So you go 2 less, and it 2 ml less if you are going by the same size of balloon, but if you are using a higher balloon with a less volume, then you don't go less. Then you go to the optimal 26.
Okay.
You understand the difference?
Yes, sir.
जब भी आप balloon को
So how
inflate
to
करते हो, वो maximum उसी में inflate होता है जो उस 26 तक जाएगा, 28 तक जाएगा. But you don't go to that size. You go always to less.
So what are the steps of balloon preparation? So after inflating and measuring the balloon up to desired size, the exit diluted contrast is discarded. The balloon is then deflated with a contrast filled syringe which is attached to the vent port. The next balloon is stretched and slenderized using the stretching tube, which is a silver tube. Now this is also, I'll be showing photograph in next slide. The first step of this is that after inserting the metal tube into the central lumen of the balloon, first we have to attach the hub of the metallic tube to the hub of the inner tube. That is the silver tube, silver thing has to be attached to golden. Then this whole assembly should be pushed further into and attached to the outer plastic. The coiled stainless wire should also be handled very carefully as it is very long and stiff wire and may injure the operators or move out of the sterile area. And the coiled end should be kept carefully in the insertion tool, which I'll be showing later. And some have said they alternatively the dilator of the vascular access sheath can be used for insertion tool for the coiled wire. Now this is what I wanted to show you.
You understand the last point, na? You had.
Yes, sir.
क्योंकि उसका डायलेटर का हब अच्छा वो होता है ना, नैरो होता है ना, तो हम प्रैक्टिकली डायलेटर में डाल के रख लेते हैं और डायलेटर से इंट्रोड्यूस कर देते हैं, लाइक इंट्रोड्यूसर.
So here we can see that this is the caliper and we are measuring the balloon, which we have to measure while we are preparing the balloon. Now these are the steps which are asked on Viva table in our exam. So this is, you can see this is the inner port of the balloon itself, which is golden. And this is the stretching tube, which is silver. So first you have to put the stretching tube here. Then you have to attach this particular hub of this golden with the silver with this golden one, like done here. And then finally you have to put and attach the hub here, and then only the balloon will be stretched and slenderized. Coming to vascular axis, so right femoral vein we usually take in adult 7 French, right femoral artery we take 6. I have was reviewing literature. Some said that we can also take additional left femoral vein for a Swan-Ganz catheterization for continuous hemodynamic monitoring. However, it is not done usually.
If yes, systemic PA pressures are there, then only we take and part in PA. Otherwise, we don't do. We generally use right femoral 8 and 5, yeah, 8 and 6.
Regarding venous punctures, so the problem here is usually what is recommended for other punctures is that you should go 45 degree, use Pythagoras theorem, and you should go and hit 45 degree only. However, in PTMC, a long subcutaneous tract can create resistance because you have to pass a lot of hardware, including that septal dilator. So we should try and go a little vertical. That is 60 degrees should be the ideal angle of going into the vein rather than 45 degree. Coming to next step, so cardiac cath is done. We measure capillary wedge pressure and LVDP and provide the pressure across the mitral valve. Cardiac output is calculated using Fick's equation. For 40-year and above patients, pre-procedure CAG is done. And we can see, like the photograph which I have shown, that in patients who have got LA clot, usually a branch from left circumflex, that is the atrial branch, it goes and it opacifies the left atrial appendage clot. So coming to the next and the most important, most difficult and most complication prone step, how to do transseptal punctures. So I have tried to cover it. However, I would recommend you to read these 2 articles. One is by Dr. Nitish Nayak, how to perform transseptal puncture, which is very simple. And one is also by Dr. C. Rajiv, how I do it. So this is the intraatrial septum as we see. Anatomically, it is bounded posteriorly by a fold of pericardium between the left and right atrium, superiorly by SPC, anterior-superiorly by a non-coronary sinus, which we use, and anteriorly by septal tricuspid annulus, anterior-inferiorly by coronary sinus os, inferiorly by IVC. So usually in RAO view, we can see that the intraatrial septum is looking at us N face. So whenever we are going, our needle should be away from us so that we are going towards the intraatrial septum. However, in LAO view, we can see the intraatrium septum, it sees us end on. We can see both right atrium as well as left atrium. So this is how we need to remember how the orientation of interatrial septum as we are looking at it in both RAO and LAO view. One more thing which sir wanted to say earlier, there are few things which we have said that in mitral valve disease, usually the fossa ovalis is shifted a little upwards as compared to normal. So we have to take care of that particular fact also. In certain patients where there is persistent LSVC, the coronary sinus enlarges. So in such patients, we also have to take into account whether the position of coronary sinus so that we might not injure it during transeptal puncture. So coming to step-by-step guide. So it is done basically in 4 steps. The first step is that we have to take the Mullin sheath with broken bone needle position.
What happens when there is a LA enlargement in mitral stenosis? Go back to the previous one. My
Yes.
cursor would not be visible. You are scaling this here.
Yes.
So yeah, you can come to the septum in LAO view.
Yes.
LAO view just go. It is going to enlarge towards the RA.
Yes, sir.
What will be the movement? It will become more and more normally. So normally the septum, if you see the Brokenberg needle, extends from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock position.
Yes, sir.
So it is going to become more horizontal, no? Then
Yes.
then septum comes to almost 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock position.
Yes, sir.
We are talking of LAO view.
Yes, sir.
Look at it as if you are looking at the clock. Mostly the
Yes, sir.
septum will extend from 3 to 7
Three
o'clock,
to
3 to 6, but it will become almost 7 or 8. It will become so flat as typically in mitral stenosis. We are doing it for many PH also, like we are stenting the intratracheal septum for PH. So today only our paper has got published in Nepal Medical Journal about intratracheal septum stenting. So where RA pressures are high. So in that particular case, the septum will go towards the LA. So
Yes.
it will become more acute. That means you have to actually at times bend the Brokenberg needle distally to sit it onto the septum. In PH situations, we are talking of mitral stenosis, so most of the time it will come to almost 7 or 8 o'clock. I think when you talk transeptal, we'll talk about this more.
So the first step is that we have to take Mullin sheath with broken bone needle and we have to position it in SVC. Now, few people say that you should position it in left innominate vein. However, Dr. Nitish Naik's article says that you have to position it in SVC and you keep one pigtail positioned in aorta at the level of aortic valve.
What is the importance if you put it in SVC is innominate vein goes superiorly and then it goes slightly posterior.
Yes, sir.
So if you come at an angle from the innominate vein, no, so it is always going to face posterior, and your left atrium is posterior structure.
Yes, sir.
So that is the advantage if you come from innominate vein. It is going to face more posterior and more towards the LA.
Then second step is that Mullin sheath with needle has to be withdrawn into right atrium to lie about half to 1 vertebra below the level of aortic catheter. The third step is that Brokenberg needle has to be rotated to 5 o'clock position and this is an RAO, and then we have to optimally position confirmed in AP, RAO, and LAO projection. And finally, we have to enter left atria. I'll be discussing and showing photographs in the next slide if you are not understanding. And you have to do septal puncture by protruding the Brokenberg needle through the Mullin sheath. And then we will confirm it by blood aspiration, contrast injection, and pressure monitoring. So in this diagram where we can see that this is what Mullin sheath with the dilator is, and this is Brokenberg needle. Now, sir was saying that I am telling you that about Mullin sheath is usually asked how wide it is. So it is 8 French for adults and 6 to 8 French for pediatric.
That is why we always take a 8 French catheter. Whenever we take 8 French catheter, the 8 French venous sheath, the advantage is that you don't have to remove the sheath. 8 French bullets will directly go through the 8 French catheter sheath. That is why we always take a venous excess as 8 whenever we start.
Then Mullin sheath length is also asked, which is 67 centimeter. 59 centimeter. And dilator length is 67 centimeter. Then coming to Brokenberg needle, so it is there are 2 kinds of Brokenberg needle available. One is Brokenberg classical, which is made by Medtronic, And the BRK St. Jude comes in different forms like BRK1, BRK2, depending on what degree curve is there. So BRK has 19-degree curve and BRK1 has 51-degree or 53-degree given at some places curve, which is used for large right atrium. So here we can see that these are different kind of Brokenberg needle. The rightmost is BRK1 and the first two are BRK only. So coming to steps. So first we place a pictal catheter in aortic root in non-coronary pulse, which is the lower.
Go back. I thought you were talking about. Go back to Brokenberg needle.
Yes, sir.
Brokenberg is important. No? Most important is next slide. The hardware. Understand the hardware. Next. The tip diameter is 21 G.
Yes.
Proximal is 18 Gauss. So this difference is also important. At times, what happens? There are new thickness. Or you've written, no? No, you've not written.
Yes, yes. Sir.
BRK has got even thicker gauze tips. That is the issue. So most of the time, you will get a 21G, which is at the tip. So don't try to push a 3-5 wire or 2-5 wire across this. No, it goes with difficulty. 2-5 goes practically if have to pass through the Brokenberg needle. The wires are generally 014 coronary wires, which are more commonly used.
Sir, they said that we should use O32, but I have never seen a O32 in our lab. Is there a O32 as well in our lab?
Yes. We use a O32 wire for the initial 32 for the initial Mullins. No, when we park it in this, we use a A32 wire.
And later we use coronary wire.
We never use coronary wire. There are certain conditions where you're going to get stuck and your transseptal needle across. You want to check through a transseptal needle, O1 coronary wire will go. But through a Mullins sheath, the maximum is a 3-2 wire. We generally use a 3-2 wire for all these.
No, I am talking about when we have done the septal puncture and we want to enter LV, then we can use coronary now. Or
no, then we use the Inno wire, jalebi wire.
Or OTW technique, like if Inno is not going, if it's a tight kind of.
Yeah,
I'll be asking it later.
We don't have 3-2 exchange is also available. We don't have a 3-2 exchange in our lab. So we generally use, in that case, a 2-5 exchange wire. Many of these. We have done one case
with
over the wire.
Dr. Dati. Yeah.
I was in that case. So coming to procedure of transseptal puncture, so we have put a pictal catheter in aortic root in NCC, which is the lowermost part of the aortic root. The right femoral vein is punctured and a 0.32 inch wire is introduced and positioned in mid portion of SVC or innominate vein. The Mullins sheath is then advanced over the guide wire into SVC and the guide wire is removed. Dilator is aspirated and flushed. The Brokenberg needle is advanced through the dilator under fluoroscopy, and we have to make sure that the sharp tip of needle remains 2 to 3 millimeter inside the dilator. I hope you can see the photograph here below, where we can see that the Brokenberg needle is 2 to 3 mm inside the sheath, and we make sure this we can see the right side of the diagram that we have to keep always a finger at the hub of the Mullins sheath, so that the Brokenberg needle doesn't go inside fully. So under fluoroscopy AP view and right atrial pressure monitoring, the entire assembly is withdrawn gradually. Now, during the initial descent from SVC to right atrium, the needle is oriented at 3 o'clock only by the help of phalange. And it is rotated slowly clockwise from 3 to 4 and 4 to 5 or 6 o'clock during subsequent withdrawal. So there are 3 leftward deflections which are noted during the descent. The first, as the catheter enters right atrium. I'll be showing the photographs in next slide. The second, gradual one over the ascending aortic bulge. So here we can see that our Mullins sheath is at the level of the pictal catheter, and the third deflection where the catheter tip clears the limbic edge and engages the fossa ovalis. To confirm the site of puncture, the most rare one is to tent the site of fossa ovalis and feel the transmitted left atrial pulsations. So here we can see in this particular diagram, this is we are doing in AP view. So here we are in SVC, and So here we have come at the level of aortic valve, that is the second deflection, and third, here we have come below the level of aortic valve at the expected area of fossa ovalis. The position of needle is then confirmed in at least two additional views, that is RAO and dead lateral. In 30 dB RAO, as we have discussed, intra-atrial septum is generally seen end face. Therefore, the needle should look away from the operator and not point to left or right. Additionally, it should be confirmed that needle is lying posterior and inferior to the plane of aorta. In the lateral view, the needle should be facing towards the spine and should be between halfway from pigtail to spine to 2/3 between pigtail and spine. And the needle should not be too low or else it may enter the coronary sinus. The position of needle needs to be confirmed in all three views for a safe and optimal septal puncture. And it is very important to recheck the position in other orthogonal view if the needle is manipulated in one view. So here we can see that in this RAO projection, we can see that the needle is looking away from us, whereas in a lateral, in dead lateral, we can see here that our needle tip is pointing towards the spine, that is posteriorly. Now, certain operators, especially the old ones who used to use classical technique, they prefer to perform septal puncture in LAO view. Because in this view, the intra-atrial septum is profiled end on. So we are basically easily see that we are entering from right to left. However, the main problem here is that the aorta is also overlapping the intra-atrial septum in this particular view. So we have to always confirm with an orthogonal view before doing a puncture. So the more commonly performed fluoroscopic method, a pictal catheter we know is positioned. It is taken as anterior septal limit in frontal view. The medial left atrial silhouette is usually considered to be the posterior limit of the septum, and the vertical line bisects the anterior and posterior septal limits, so determined. The horizontal line crossing the center of the mitral annulus is determined from diastolic stop frame of the LV angiogram. However, for practical purposes, we assume it to be around 1 to 3 centimeter or half a vertebral body to one vertebral body lower than pictal parked in non-coronary sinus. Now, this is the classical Innous angiographic method, which is now no more used. There we used to do two perpendicular lines, and the target site of central puncture is located on the intersection of this vertical midline. This is an LAO projection, where the vertical midline divides intra-atrial septum into anterior and posterior halves, and horizontal line crosses the center of mitral annulus. Now, if you can see this right diagram, this is an LAO 40. This is basically a RA angiogram. And in an RA angiogram also, if there is complex anatomy, we can delineate the intra-atrial septum in RAO. We can, as we saw in the first diagram, we can clearly see that we can see it end face with fossa ovalis, right diaphragm, right atrial free wall. And we can go ahead and use it for puncturing fossa ovalis. So once we have punctured using the broken bow needle,
actually we are not using any of these methods, no. Your hungs, these were the methods described, but we go by whatever you have described. Pigtail as the anterior landmark, spine as the posterior landmark.
Yes.
LAO, it is septum is in the center. RAO, the septum is en face. So always keep on rotating between these two views.
Yes. So LA entry is confirmed by aspiration of bright red LA blood or checking pressure or injecting contrast. Once LA entry is confirmed and there is little or no resistance, the catheter needle is advanced into LA and then needle is taken back. The catheter alone is advanced after needle is being withdrawn. It is advisable to perform an echo if operator is beginner or the puncture site was doubtful, so as to ensure there is no effusion or to document the inappropriate puncture size. A simultaneous LA-LV gradient should be taken at this particular point by advancing the pigtail into LV. And now heparin has to be given. So 200 unit per kg in pediatric, and for adults 3000 unit heparin should be given after this point, after we have done the septal puncture. And then septal dilatation is done using the dilator. So this is one or more diagram where we can see that if when the Mullen sheath was adherent to fossa ovalis, there was a plain line. There was straight line. However, when the septal puncture was done, we can then see left atrial trace from the Mullen sheath. The next step in BMV is to crossing the mitral valve. This is again a very important step. So this has to be carried out in RO view. For crossing the mitral valve and entering the LV entry stylet is used to maneuver the balloon. Usually the stylet is given a slight anterior.
Parin you are giving after the transseptal puncture, no?
Right, sir.
That is
The stylet is given 2 to 3 anti-clockwise rotations so that the balloon starts facing towards the LV. The balloon facing the valve is identified by bobbing of the balloon, bobbing movement of the balloon, and falls in aortic pressure as the balloon partially obstructs the mitral valve. Then there are 4 described methods of entering into mitral valve. The classical is Inhofe method, where we use the stylet to steer the Inhofe balloon across the MV mitral valve. That is either by changing stylet curvature method or loop method. And there's one Swan-Ganz balloon assistance method, where mitral valve can be crossed by Swan-Ganz catheter using balloon flotation technique, followed by positioning of O25 coil wire in LV. Then there is Mears technique, where we cross the mitral valve by placing a O2O backup J-tipped wire in LV, or here we can use coronary wire also, and then introduction of diagnostic JR over this wire. Then positioning the pre-shaped O25 coil wire in LV, directly followed by introduction of Inhofe balloon over the wire. And then at last, the Manjunath technique. What they do there is that they directly introduce the Jalebi wire into LV through the Mullen sheath. So this Manjunath technique or Mears technique, this is more useful when we see where there's a LA is small, or there is LA appendage clot, or there's a LA roof clot which is above the level of fossa ovalis. Now coming to balloon dilatation. So you can see in the right sided above picture, as we were saying, that it is a stage balloon dilatation always. And first there is a distal inflation followed by a proximal inflation. And the last inflation is the waist part, which gets inflated with a very, very highly applied pressure. And the dilatation has to be stepwise. So you can see this table. If there is a pliable valve with almost negligible or mild MR, the initial dilatation is reference size minus 2 mm. And then we increment the dilatation by 1 mm with each dilatation, or 0.5 mm if we are in the higher pressure zone. The pressure zone here is defined as sir already explained. If we are using a balloon size of higher balloon size, then we are in the higher pressure zone. And if we are doing a lower balloon size, then we are in the lower pressure zone. So if you are using a reference size balloon only, then even small increment of 0.5 mm will give us a equally good pressure. In patients who have got moderate MR, then the initial dilatation is reference size minus 4, and the increments are as earlier. And if there is a calcified calcified valve or thickened subvalvular apparatus, then again also the initial dilatation has to be reference size minus 4 mm with an incremental dilatation of 1 mm. After each dilatation, we have to check for LA and LV pressures. What are the gradients? Is there any acute MR?
Suppose you are using a Inhofe of 28 millimeters. What will be the minimum size of the valve which you can dilate? Of course, the pressure would be less as compared to the appropriate size of the tail, but what will be the minimum size of the balloon you can dilate?
Sir, I could not understand.
So,
sir, supposedly 28 ka balloon
28 ka balloon hai.
So we will go for 26. The first dilatation would be 26.
No, वो तो इसके according ना, आगे इसके क्या 26 से करेंगे, फिर gradually increase करेंगे. Suppose आपका annulus आ रहा है 22. Your annulus नहीं, sorry, RS, your recommended size is coming out to be 22. And you have a 30 millimeter balloon. Can you use it, or you cannot use it?
Sir, we can use it. Then we have to. So we are on a very high pressure zone. Then we have to just fill that particular amount of dye only.
It can only go up to a range of 6 millimeters. यानी 30 का जो बलून है वो 24 से नीचे कोई यूज नहीं है उसका. It is useless.
No, up to 4. Yeah, up to 4 to 6.
Yeah, so maximum is up to 6 millimeters. So अगर आपके पास 28 का बलून है, you can use it for 22. But if you use a 24, ये practical question है. अगर आपको 24 का बलून है, वो आप 22 में use करोगे तो you will be able to generate a better pressure. अगर आप 26 का बलून 22 में use करोगे क्योंकि 6 millimeter less तक जा सकते हो. 20 जो value है वो maximum है. So you can one message is you can go less than 4 जाने का कोई फायदा नहीं होता है practically. 26 है तो 22 से नीचे का मतलब नहीं है करने का. 28 है तो 24 से नीचे का डायमीटर 28 बलून यूज करने का फायदा नहीं है. You understand?
Yes, sir. So how will we define whether successful or not? So successful BMV is defined as 50% or more increase in mitral valve area by planimetry, increase in mitral valve area of more than 1.5 centimeter square, MR not more than grade 2, at least one commissure should be visibly split, and there should be no major complications. So the immediate hemodynamic results are described as that MVO area increases from an average of 1 to 2 centimeters square. The transmitral pressure gradient reduces from an average of 18 to 6 millimeter of mercury. And the PVR declines rapidly with normal or increased cardiac output. Coming to complications, so in general, BMV is safe procedure with high success rate in patients with optimal valve morphology. The reported rate of complications are mortality.
Suppose a single commissure is split. What is the area you expect? What is the typically area you expect?
Sir.
Suppose a single commissure split is there. What is the area you expect? Suppose both the commissures
A single commissure should increase by 1 centimeter square, both by 2.
Normally, as per the literature, if you expand by single commissure is split, the area typically results in a valve area of 1.6 to 1.8.
No, I'm talking about just increase.
Okay, I'm saying absolute size. If both the areas are split, then of course it can go greater than 1.8, greater than 1.8. So, if the single commissure is split, there is no point in re-expanding if it is opened up, because if you expand it again, you are going to stretch this same commissure.
Yes.
Only if both the commissure are split on the first inflation, that is the best way. I mean, that is what one should expect. But if single commissure is split and you again want to go in and expand the other commissure, then it is of no use. Because if expand hoga, to the same commissure is going to expand and you are going to create more MR. So except area which is 1.6 is very good. If you expect with a single commissure, 1.6 absolute area is very good. Come back.
So reported rates of complications are mortality is 0 to 0.5%, cerebral embolism is 0.5 to 1%, perforation and tamponade are again less than 1%, severe MR requiring emergency surgery 2%, and mild to moderate MR 15%. I'll be discussing MR in detail. Nearly 20%.
There was one more point. Whenever you do the procedure, you have to keep the wire inside for almost 2-3 minutes. Why? Once you do the procedure, you don't take it out everything. You just take out the balloon, then just wait for few minutes, and then you look at the echo and then take out the wire. Why do you do so?
Reinflation, sir.
Shashank, you are saying something, no?
Reinflation.
There is
So
something called a stitch. You know what is a stitch? What has happened when you are doing a transseptal puncture? You have punctured the RA, then the recess, pericardial recess, and then you have punctured the LA.
Right, sir.
So then you dilate it, then you take the no balloon, you will go into the LA, you will accomplish your procedure. Once you take out the balloon, it is going to cause tamponade. So what is the safety precaution? You can never be sure whether you have created a stitch or you have not created the stitch. The best way is you take out the dilator, wait for 2-3 minutes. Meanwhile, you assess your pressures. Normally, it takes time. All this thing. Assess your pressures, or whenever you are assessing your pressures across, looking at the echo, looking at the fusions. Remove the whole assembly, but keep the wire inside. If there is a wire inside, you can easily go in again and occlude it if it is causing tamponade. After a few minutes, it will automatically get sealed off. But if you're not doing it and if you caught in a stitch, it's a disaster. The only next
So-
step is to take it to the OT.
So stitch is basically intrapericardial tracking, no?
You have gone from the left atrium into the pericardial space and into the left atrium.
सर तो
Intrapericardial.
इन केस कभी भी हम निकालेंगे तो होगा ही ना सर.
अभी भी नहीं होगा. अगर आपने फोसा वैली से चले गए हो तो क्लियर है. पर अगर आपने
नहीं
स्टिच कर
मतलब हमने एक बार स्टिच कर दिया है तो हम जब निकालेंगे टेम्पोनाड होगा ही होगा.
अगर वायर अक्रॉस है और पेशेंट क्रैश कर रहा है टेबल के ऊपर, आप इजीली बैलून ले जाके उसको इन्फ्लेट करके रख दोगे.
हाँ ये कर सकते हैं.
और पेशेंट he will not crash. Hemodynamics will improve on the table immediately. कुछ देर बाद ना what happens practically every operator has seen it. ऐसा हो नहीं सकता कोई कहे मैंने आज तक स्टिच किया ही नहीं. अब स्टिच रेट्रोस्पेक्टिवली देखते हैं. जब ये क्रैश होने लगता है और फ्यूजन बढ़ने लग जाता है, हम फटाफट जाके बैलून को इन्फ्लेट करके थोड़ी देर बाद क्या होता है, वो एरिया सील होने लग जाता है. कुछ सील हो जाएगा. Then you just remove the assembly and it is all sealed. Pericardial space भर जाती है, उसमें clots हो जाता है. You don't give anything for maintain your INR. You don't give anything. You don't repeat your heparin doses, no. In fact, some people give protamine. तो pericardial space seal off हो जाती है, recess seal off हो जाती है, and then you take it out and it will seal. But अगर आपकी wire across नहीं है, फिर तो एक ही option है, go to the OR. Cannot do anything. आप दोबारा ट्रांसएप्टल करोगे, कुछ भी कर लोगे, स्टिच के उससे थोड़ी ना दोबारा जा पाओगे. So whenever you complete your procedure, you keep a wire across. Practically every operator does it. वो बोलता कोई नहीं है. वो निकालने के बाद ना हर कोई प्रेशर्स देखने लग जाता है, इको देखने लग जाता है, फ्यूजन्स चेक करने लग जाता है. 1-2 मिनट ऐसे ऐसे निकाल देते हैं. फिर उसके बाद वायर खींच देते हैं.
सर ये बलून इन्फ्लेशन हम वही सपोज हो जाता है तो बलून इन्फ्लेशन जहाँ पे हमने सेप्टिक पंक्चर किए वहाँ करते हैं एंड वी यूज अ इनो बलून. नहीं यूज बलून कौन सा यूज करेंगे फिर?
वो भी हमारे पास बैलून सामने पड़ा है. अल्टीमेटली तो सील ही करना है.
ओके सर.
इट इज अ इमीडिएट कॉम्प्लिकेशन.
ओके सर.
So nearly 20% of patients are left with small residual ASD, which closes or decreases in most of the patients. So acute MR following PTMC. So we have discussed that varying degree of MR happens in 15 to 25% patient undergoing VMV. Only 3 to 8% developed MR. So there is one series from Jayadeva Institute only. They were in 3,855 patients. There were 50 cases. 1.3% developed acute severe MR. Then in-hospital mortality was 12% and mortality was higher in those who underwent MVR more than 24 hours compared to those who underwent urgent MVR. The symptoms of MR are most common hypotension, hypoxia, orthopnea, pulmonary edema. And the causes of acute severe MR post-BMV, the most common is AML tear, followed by PML tear, followed by paracommissural tear, followed by chordal tear. Coming to the results of BMV. So there are 4 international series, one by Fauci et al., where they have followed up to 20 years and they found that event-free survival was in almost 44% patient with score of less than 8. Then Palacios et al. For a 12 years follow-up, the event-free survival of 79%, and Lung et al. 60%, and Banferath et al. 70%. Coming to major Indian series, so there is one series by Arora et al. I'll be discussing its results also in the next slide. It's the GB-PUN series of almost 5,000 patients, where success rate was 99.8% and severe MR was only in 0.5%. One is from AIMS in of 500 patients where severe MR was in 2.5%. And one is from Nair Medical College, Bombay, Dr. Satyavan Sharma, where again that severe MR was only 2%. There's one series from CMC Vellore by Dr. George Joseph. And also that death was only in 0.5%, severe MR was only in 2.6%. MVR requirement was also less than 1%. So one more important observation from Herrera et al. Was that restenosis was observed in 4.8% patients on their 94-month follow-up, almost 8-year follow-up. And the largest series, if someone asks, is from Jayadeva Institute, Manjunath et al. With 12,000 PTMC patients. And coming to long-term outcome patients, so all over the world there are different series. In India, the longest one is by Aurora et al. Only 8 years. We have discussed already. However, there are series like there's one from Brazil where 23-year follow-up is there, and the NYHA class 1-2 was in 87%, and re-intervention was required in 18% over the period of 23 years. So more or less, this is what we have in terms of data. Regarding MR, one more thing, there is one score called Total MR Eco Score, suggested by Padial et al., where they say that if the MR Eco Score is more than 7, then positive predictive value of developing a MR would be 97.7%. Coming to multivariate predictions of mortality. So echocardiography score of more than 8, higher age, prior history of CMV, NYHA class 4, high post-procedural PA pressures, pre-procedural MR grade more than 2, or post-procedural MR grade of more than 3. They are multivariate predictors of mortality.
कहाँ से है?
सर ये एक आर्टिकल से है.
अच्छा, because the long-term mortality में another is अगर systolic pressure अगर high हो and left ventricular end diastolic pressure अगर high हो, LVED of more than 15 and pulmonary artery pressure of more than 40. There are two additional long-term mortality. Actually, these two are more important. जो मैं बोल रहा हूँ ना, वापिस है ना MR के अलावा, MR is the most important. MR and MI. वापिस previous slide for mortality predictors.
Yes.
So if the age is increasing, then the valve age and functional class of the patient, MR. यानी echocardiographic role कह लो, indirectly signals to MR. You have written high post procedure PA pressures. Yeah, PA pressures and LVEDs. So these are actually, ये सब चीजें बताती हैं कि long term, because it is very important for counseling the patient. जब आप काउंसलिंग कर रहे होते हैं ना, आप ओपीडी में आपको पता है कि इस पेशेंट को बोलना तैयार करना पड़ेगा आगे एमवीआर के लिए. नॉट जस्ट एमआर, ये प्रेशर्स अगर हाई हैं, फंक्शनल क्लास तो ऑब्वियसली एवरीबॉडी विल डू. अगर एज ज्यादा है, पीए प्रेशर्स हाई हैं, ईडीज उसके बहुत हाई आए थे टेबल के ऊपर, या फिर आपको लग रहा है कि इको में भी ईडीज इसके हाई होंगे, these are the group where one should be counseling them for early MVR.
Coming to BMV in juvenile MS, this is also asked, as juvenile MS is asked. So, special features of MS in children are their fibrotic rubbery valve with severe subvalvular disease. Calcification is rare and atrial fibrillation is less common. Significant PAH is seen in majority of children. So, there is one series of 12.5 thousand cases by Manjunath series. On 4% were less than 10 years. The youngest was 7-year-old. And 14% were in the age range of 10 to 20%. So BMV in children appears to be safe and effective, similar to adult patient also. And in long-term follow-up, there was no significant difference in evidence of restenosis and event-free survival. So these topics are which I could not cover. Where BMV is challenging. So in complex anatomy, this I have not covered in this particular class, but we can always do it later. Whenever the septum is thick, is bulging, or there is a double atrial membrane, there is dextrocardia, there is kyphoscoliosis, there is giant LA, small LA, giant RA, thick intraatrial septum, or other techniques like double balloon technique, multi-track technique, PTMC in pregnancy and PTMC in early clot. These I could not cover. Thank you.
Nicely compiled, I think. Actually, this is a very important PPT. Everyone should keep it, especially those studies. No, हर उसके बाद DMV डिस्कस होता है हर मेडिकल कॉल के बाद और हमेशा वही पूछ रहे होते हैं कि स्टडीज इंडियन स्टडीज और वो बताओ. I think it's important. Nicely compiled.